Good. I'm here with Pierce Nelson. Pierce and I have been in communication for years. He is the public affairs officer of the CDC Foundation. The CDC Foundation is one of the unfortunately best kept secrets in the United States. And his colleague and the president of the foundation, Judy Monroe, was with us a few years ago. What was it, Pierce? 3-4 years ago? Something.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
3 years ago. And those days we talked about Zika. And we are fortunate now that we're back to have Pierce join us. He tried, but we had to cancel last year. So,
that's right.
Pierce, say a word to the viewers about who you are and what you do in the CDC Foundation, because most people don't know what the CDC Foundation is.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for communications at the CDC Foundation, and the CDC Foundation is an independent nonprofit created by Congress back in the 1990s to really extend the life-saving work of CDC and public health through public-private partnerships, working with the government, with individuals, with philanthropies and corporations to raise support for programmatic efforts that are aimed at improving population health, really the health for everyone.
I'm one of your contributors.
Yes.
Send you money and I encourage you to do, but I know what you do. In a crisp word, can you tell people what the CDC Foundation does?
Sure. So really in normal times and all the time really, we're working on a variety of different types of efforts covering everything from chronic disease conditions like tobacco and tobacco control issues to infectious diseases like meningitis in sub-Saharan Africa and the meningitis belt in Africa. And then we also work on emergency response related efforts too, like you mentioned Zika. There's also Ebola. We did quite a bit of work on Ebola, and then also COVID-19. And in emergency responses, really a lot of the work that we do is before government funding really comes in and is available, because government funding primarily has to be appropriated, right?
Yeah.
So the CDC Foundation, we work with our donors, we raise support, and then we deploy that funding in ways that really meet immediate, on-the-ground type of needs that may arise in crisis situations.
What would be a COVID that a viewer who's now experienced the COVID story for the last year or so, give one example of what the CDC Foundation did in the United States, and my follow-up question is going to be about the rest of the world and what your plan is. So let's do U.S. first.
Sure. So just as one example, early on in the crisis, as I mentioned, we were meeting those immediate type of needs that were arising. And one of those needs, as we all remember, is personal protective equipment for frontline responders. And so the CDC Foundation worked with our donors, and through purchases, through donations, we were able to deploy about 8 million pieces of personal protective equipment that could be used by frontline responders. So that's an example of kind of an in-the-moment need.
Yeah, so let me just rephrase so people understand. This was a charitable organization that raises money charitably, 501c3.
Correct.
And delivers 8 million pieces of PPE in the heat of the battle.
Yes.
Okay, this is not the federal government.
Correct.
That's the CDC. That's different than you are.
That's correct.
Okay, so go ahead. I don't want to cut you off, but I want people to understand there's an apple and an orange.
Correct.
And you don't make fruit salad out of it.
So we really strive to complement the work that CDC is doing, to complement the work that government is doing, so that you have, because I should make the point that government support is absolutely essential to addressing these needs that arise.
Right.
What we believe, though, is when you put together the government support with funding that comes together from the philanthropic and private sectors, that we really can do more working together.
So in a quick moment, what would you say to the American viewer audience in terms of care and warning now? And can you give us a second quick moment on the rest of the world and what you see?
Sure. Well, obviously, we've seen the rise of the Delta variant of COVID-19 here in the United States. And so first and foremost, I would encourage people to get vaccinated. That is, they're safe, they're effective, it's your best protection. So that's number one. When it comes to the rest of the world, obviously vaccines are starting to roll out. There's much more demand out in the world for vaccines. There's a lot that needs to be done in the meantime before those vaccines are available. One example of some work that we've done is when India had their surge back a couple of months ago, the CDC Foundation worked closely with CDC and then people in country to actually ship 170 large volume oxygen containers there that were available very quickly to meet the needs in 3 Indian states. So that's an example of some of the work we've done globally.
You finally got here? Did you go fishing today?
I did.
How'd you do?
Well, that's a question I'd rather not answer, David. We caught a few fish. How
You
about
caught
that?
a few fish. That's good enough. And we got a good group, and we're
Absolutely.
happy that you were able to join us finally.
Thanks so much for
So
having me.
Pierce Nelson is one of our campers this year after a long and rigorous waiting period. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, David.
All right, Pierce, thanks.